So first off, we need to define or put a definition behind the word Nihonto and also replica. So a Nihonto can have many definitions. It could have a physical definition, and it could have also a feeling that people get when they hear the word Nihonto. The initial definition of Nihonto is origin in Japan, or something made in Japan, or more specifically, sword made in Japan, or even more specifically, katana made in Japan is only called a Nihonto. Now, the definition of a replica katana is very easy. Any sword that is not made in Japan. Greetings and welcome all my sword friends. Now this particular video is in response to a genius video that Matthew JENSEN had put out, and his video was called Why Buy a Replica Instead of a Nihonto. Now there is a lot that I agree with Matthew in his discussion of Nihonto versus replica, or why replica over Nihonto, vice versa. There are a couple really important factors I believe in that I'm going to be highlighting in this video. Now when people think about Nihonto, yes, it's a sword made in Japan, it's a genuine sword made in Japan, or a katana would be called the Nihonto. But the feeling that people get when they hear the word Nihonto, it's a very powerful historical meaning to it. There's much excitement, shrouded mystery, expertise, and most of all, honor, tradition, and dedication that goes into the meaning behind that word, Nihonto. So there's a 2,000 year history that goes behind the word Nihonto beyond the actual meaning of the definition. Now there is a lot of heated debates or heated discussions regarding a replica katana being able to be called a katana and not having the word replica having to be included when you're mentioning a katana that is not made in Japan. Now I can understand the traditionalists and their passion for keeping the tradition alive, and they're doing a great job in terms of many masters that are still practicing 1,000-year tradition in how they produce and make the katana even in modern days. Japanese steel, iron sand from a certain mountain in Japan, the smelted iron, the forge, everything that goes along with it, the tradition of it is still very strong. Okay, now this is the only replica katana that I have that's not packed because I'm actually moving. This particular sword, I did a review on it. This is, I believe it's called a Kaizen, and this sword was sent to me for review from Mini Katana. This would be probably a great example of a good quality replica katana in terms of the handle, the fit and finish, the beauty of the blade, the polishing work of the blade. This would probably be considered, and it's a 1095 steel, non-mahogany, but it's a 1095 modern steel. Now listen, people can make arguments as much as they want as far as not being able to call this an actual katana only because it's not made in Japan. But the fact of the matter is, whether it's made in China or Korea or anything like that, let's talk about China. They've been producing swords there for thousands of years. Prior to ever even making katana production-wise there, they were making their own weaponry, Chinese weaponry. Swords have been made in China for decades and decades and thousands of years. Specifically, katana have been produced in China for hundreds of years, many centuries. I don't know the exact number, definitely many centuries, katana have been produced in China. I mean, you could make an argument there are pros and cons in terms of only wanting to buy Nihonto or only wanting to buy replica katana made outside of Japan. My shirt basically says, I don't know if you can see it, it says blade addict, okay? I don't think I would be much of a blade addict if I was restricted from being able to review or be sent or purchase a replica katana. I don't think many people would basically keep that tradition alive if they were only able to get a katana that was made in Japan. So we have to appreciate the fact that replica katanas have done a lot to keep the tradition of the katana, the 1,000-year tradition of history, of dedication, of honor, has been kept alive with the replica katana. And we could even make that argument with anime. Anime is another big argument. If anime has helped the sword industry, and ultimately I had videos out there as well about this. I'll leave links to everything I'm talking about in the description. Anime has done a lot to increase the interest of even the younger generations into the age-old art of forging and making the sword. Obviously, there is a long line of budget katana all the way up into high-end, into evolution blade. You have the Musha all the way up to evolution blade. You have ranges that go from sub $200 to $500 to $800 to $1,000 and way up from there into the thousands, you know, depending on basically where you want to shop and who you trust to basically make your sword. Having my hands on many different katana, I think they're doing a great job in the replica katana market to at least faithfully reproduce. Now, I understand a Nihonto, there's nothing like it in the world, especially the new modern Nihontos, which are called Shinsakuto. Everything is completely handmade and made to order. There's nothing like having a sword made in the traditional Nihonto sense in Japan. Of course, you have American smiths like Walter Soros and Howard Clark. They're producing katana that probably rival anything that they're making in Japan for the most part in their blades, but they're not considered Nihonto. They're still made on American soil. They're replica katana. As beautifully crafted as these swords can be, they're made on American soil, so they cannot be considered and have the value of a Nihonto passed down generation to generation. But of course, there's other markets for that, but not the Nihonto market. One big pro about owning a replica katana: the modern steels of today are much stronger than the traditional mahogany, iron sand, iron, and how they're produced in Japan. Now, me as a kid at heart, I would basically say the Nihonto made in Japan in the old traditional ways is probably the most strongest steel and the strongest sword in the world. But obviously I know that's not true. But I still like to believe that. Because you look at a tamahogany sword, a Nihonto made in Japan, it's just, the beauty is just speechless. You're speechless at the beauty of the hada, the hamon line, the formation of the blade is absolutely gorgeous. There's really nothing like it. If you are a humble practitioner and you're looking to basically train with the sword and learn the art of the sword, a replica katana, something like this, or many different other brands like Hanwei, Skyjiro, Huawei, I mean, the list can go on and on. Ronin for starter katana, many different budgets that any person for the most part can get into to learn the art of the sword and be able to train with it. So that practitioner could basically decide if he wants to spend in the 300 range, in the 800 range, in the over 1,000, over 2,000 range, depending on basically what his budget is, what he wants to spend or invest into the art. He has that option, and the swords will hold up. The swords are made well, and the swords, if it broken in terms of doing cutting practices, it's not a major tragedy, and you're not ruining or destroying a piece of art or a piece of history by having a Nihonto to be able to train with. So that is a big plus and a big factor of why so many people in America, around the world, are practicing the age-old art of Iaido and practicing and learning the art of the sword because of this secondary market of katana that are available. Because if they were not available and people were restricted to only being able to get swords out of Japan, which is also very hard to do, by the way, I don't think tradition would be as strong as it is today. So another big reason why replica katana would be probably a great choice in terms of those factors there. But of course, anyone who is into katana, into the history of katana, the details, that mysterious, wonderful sword that is the katana, the dedication, the pride, the honor that goes behind that weaponry and the samurai himself. Anyone who is into that would definitely want to own a Nihonto, or they dream of actually owning a modern Nihonto, an antique Nihonto, or something made today. But the fact is, unless you are disgustingly rich in terms of your income and you're able to spend the minimum of $8,000 just to get the blade done without getting any kosher or customizing the sword the way you want it, which can definitely go $10,000 and over. If you're able to spend that and you're a practitioner and you want to train with that sword, hey, bless you, that is great. I mean, if you're able to do so, that's awesome. If you're going to be cutting with it, be careful, because again, a lot of the super steels can handle materials today, and you're spending that much money on the sword and you're not going to want to break or bend something like that. So it's definitely a risk you're taking, basically getting into a Nihonto for that reason as a practitioner. Or if you are a practitioner or a lover of swords and you're a collector and you want to own a genuine Nihonto, a genuine Japanese sword, that's another big reason. If you can afford it, go for it. There are two companies, there's not many companies and there's a lot of scams out there, but there's two companies that I'll leave the links in the description as I'm describing it. that are pretty reputable from what I read and offer actual modern katana. Modern Nihonto is actually called a Shinsakuto, like I said before, and that's how you would look it up on their websites. The first one is TokyoNihonto.com. They have a good-looking site. They have some really beautiful, good-looking swords, and they also sell antiques. Now, the antiques are for sale. I see two antiques they have for sale. One is for $2,100, and one is around $3,150, and that's actually an early Edo period wakizashi that has a full koshire and all that. Those are two of them that they have as antiques. The other company is Tozando Shop. Tozando Shop is also custom Shinsakuto, and they also offer antiques. The one antique that really stuck out of my mind was an 1864, I think it's a Shinshinto era, and it was made by the Smith, if I can pronounce it right, Munshiro, for around $16,000. I mean, there's a certificate with it, and it's just a traditional, amazing sword, beautiful restoration, everything's in great shape. Now, if you have the money to kind of spill on that, I would never recommend using that sword, but if you have the money that you want to as a collector, then Nihonto is where you want to go. If you want to have something that's going to have a return on value, there are certain swords that are made aftermarket as a replica, like Citadel or Evolution blades, which are very prestigious and very high quality swords. But for the most part, as a collector, a Nihonto, if you could afford it, antique or a modern one, a Shinsakuto, is where you want to go. And that would be probably a reason that we would want to get into a Nihonto. The Tozando Shop in Japan has some of the most incredible swordsmiths on the planet. You have to keep in mind that just the entry level of making the blade could be in the realm of $30,000 and more and up. You can get the best production sword on the planet for a quarter of that price as a katana replica. But for the most part, guys, an everyday Joe, a replica katana is definitely made well. They're beautiful swords. There's a lot of different options in terms of variety and color schemes and blade shapes and blade geometrics and all that you can get into. They're made with some really amazing super steels. You have the S5s and the S7s. You still have the tried and true 1095, the T10s, all the tool steels, a lot of Japanese tool steels that are made. And there's a lot of contributions from many different people around the planet to produce and make these swords as best as they can be. And depending on your budget, it's definitely something that you can get into now, today, tomorrow, and be able to train with it, cut with it, and enjoy the tradition of the sword. So I would never sit here and recommend that no one get a Nihonto. I think if you have the means and the ability, a Nihonto is a treasure. It's a national treasure. It's a piece of history that I think everyone should be able to own if you are a lover of swords, if you're able to. And again, there are antiques that range in the $3,000 range for like the World War II guntos and stuff like that, all the way up into the early Edo period and go up from there. I mean, some of the most expensive swords in the world are katana, Nihonto, or tachi. If you have the means, it's definitely a wonderful thing to own. If you're looking to train with it, or if you're looking to use it as a practitioner, that gets a little iffy because it's, again, you're playing with something that really should be preserved and should be saved and should be just basically admired. I'm very happy that they're making these replica katana, and they're making them extremely well, and they're making them accessible to many different people to be able to practice and learn the tradition of the art of the sword in many different forms. And you can collect these and you can admire them and display them in your home. They're beautiful pieces of art, even though they are replicas. But when we're speaking about YouTube, we also have to understand that a lot of the reason why katana, swords, swordplay, knives, blades of all kind are popular are for YouTubers, content creators. I'm going to kind of tip my own hat right now to all content creators that basically spend the time to review the swords and to get them out there and spend the tireless hours to basically train with them and use them and show all the details and do the reviews and do the videos and put them out there for all you guys. I commend everyone that basically does that, because you are a factor in why swordplay and swordcraft is so popular around the entire planet today. And of course, to the companies that send us reviews, the companies that entrust us basically to advertise their products and show their products and use them and render our own humble opinions on how the swords are made, how they work, and how they're built. So after seeing a video like this, and I basically spotlight anyone else who has an opinion on this, definitely VR, me, Matthew, or whatever the case is, After watching a video like this, what is your opinion on the replica katana? Do you still see it as being an important factor in the swordcraft market? How do you view a Nihonto still being made in Japan in terms of the craftsmanship? And if it's something that you should only get into Nihonto rather than a replica. What is your opinion? I would love to hear about it. And if you have a response video, why not put it out there? But as always, guys, I am a sword reviewer. I have many reviews coming up. Take a look at these videos coming up next for more actual reviews of replica katana, which are pretty damn freaking good. Have a good one, guys. Joe from JS Bladecraft. Thanks for listening. Cheers. I'll see you soon. Ciao.